Local recognition continued to grow, with lots of people on hand to give them sound advice. This included their good friend Rob Cakeley, a teacher at Poway High School, who at the time had strong links with the local music industry.
I think Tom kept coming back to me because he knew that I worked for a record company at the time. And I think, you know, that was a light that hit his head that said, you know, talk to this guy, he knows what's going on in the music scene. He seemed to respect my opinion about a lot of different things. I knew what record companies were somewhat looking for beyond just the average band that was happening. So, you know, he would come back in, and eventually after a couple months, he finally brought me in the CD, which was Cheshire Cat. It just had Blink on it. It wasn't Blink182, it was just Blink. And he said, yeah, I'll give you one of the first copies. And he said, this is the second copy I've given out, so here it is, you know, this is important for you to have. And so I checked it out, and I was just blown away. I'm like, man, this is so different than that tape that I heard. It was real rough recording. The CD was so good. I mean, I think at the time, them putting out some small things on Cargo and Grilled Cheese Records and things like that, they were excited to have close to 50,000 sales, which is a really good number. But for them to go from that point, and I know at that point they were just like, oh my God, we've made it, you know, this is it. For them to go from that point and then start selling gold records at the time with Cheshire Cat and Dude Ranch, for them to start selling like that, they were just like, oh my God, you know, this is ridiculous.
Next morning couldn't open my eyes. Rolled over, and to my surprise, where the fuck was my pink elephant? Oh shit, I slept with the fat chick, and her name was Michelle.
Huge bitch, a really fat bitch.
We shower about 4 times a day and scrub each other's backs and butts.
One thing that was causing the guys a problem in their early days was their name. There was already a band called Blink. The Irish techno band Blink had been around a few years longer, so it was decided that the San Diego threesome should change their name to Blink182. Where this name came from was, and still is, a continued source of contention.
Well, you know, it's funny, you can hear a number of different rumors about their name, and, you know, I'm sure Tom will probably tell you a number of different reasons, maybe 10 different reasons on 10 different interviews. He knows probably whatever he wants people to believe on that day. The rumor that I heard that I thought made the most sense was they had to change their name from Blink to Blink182 because there was a techno band, I think it was like techno ambient type music, so they had to change their name. And I know that he was looking at Blink Punk Rock, or, you know, he was going to change his name to something odd. He decided on Blink182, and I think where they got the 182 from was the amount of times that Al Pacino says in, I don't know if you can say that, in Scarface. And I thought that was true. I thought that was right on. I've never taken the time to count it out how many times in Scarface that's said, but whether that's true or not, I don't know. And they may or may not validate that, so we'll see.
There's this whole mystique about the 182 associated with the Blink, and I know I've gone to their webpage and there's been all these myths and theories and all this stuff, but I in fact remember sitting here while they were discussing the 182, and I know where it came from, and I'll never tell anybody.
They'd managed to play a few gigs, which introduced them to their target audience, teenagers. However, to get noticed around the country, they needed to get their music heard on the nation's radio stations.
I actually was hired by Cargo. I was going to drive around the country for 3 months, and I drove around the country in my big-ass car and just delivered the Blink CD, the M&M's thing, to radio stations across the country, thinking that, come on, you got to see this stuff. And the funny thing was, there was one station I remember that played it, a station called WXSR in Tallahassee, Florida. There was a girl called Chaz there. Gave her the copy, and she goes, yeah, pretty cool, and she put it on. And the next thing you know, K-Rock started playing it. I don't know how and why or whatever, so they just picked it up somehow.
And K-Rock's a big breaking radio station. You get it played on K-Rock and it'll play everywhere across the United States. And this song was playing on K-Rock constantly, and I thought, these guys have made it.
Realising that they could become very popular indeed, Blink182 were keen to move to a bigger label who could use their superior resources to push the band's albums even further.
So MCA Records came down to San Diego. Fing, off they go. Signed to MCA.
Eric Goodis from Cargo Records knew that the band had outgrown his label. Fortunately, there was no animosity between Eric and the guys.
Blink started shopping on their own to look at labels because they were ready for the next record. And they had just about were convinced, where they wanted to go when the MCA deal came up. And they met with MCA and they decided that was the best deal for them. Ultimately it was, for a lot of financial reasons. MCA was putting together the best package. More likely because it was coming out of a joint venture company that us and MCA were in. So just the way the mechanics of this joint venture worked, anything Blink got was 100% theirs.
As the members began to dedicate themselves 100% to the band, Scott was having second thoughts, wanting to continue with his studies. But Mark and Tom were not impressed and said that if he wasn't prepared to keep up with them, he should leave the band.
Scott was kicked out of the band, and when you do what you do and you think that you're going to take off and play in a band that's going to be just as big, Scott didn't have the personality that these guys had, and so it's unfortunate that I think a lot of us can look back in life and say we had some opportunities that we missed, and I think for Scott that's one of the opportunities that he missed.
Scott had now left, which meant another drummer had to be found. Thankfully, a suitable candidate quickly appeared. Travis Barker was 22 years old and a native of California. He'd recently left the Aquabats, so the offer to join Blink182 came just at the right time.
When they started rehearsing with Travis the first time and the second time, that's when I think they got a lot more serious and realized, wow, this is a really good drummer. This can elevate our band quite a bit. And then from the business standpoint of things, Travis did Enema of the State with him, and it was a huge difference. Anyone that listens to the two albums from Dude Ranch, it's a big difference. And he adds a lot to that band, and they know that. And he's a full member of the band. It's not one of these hired gun things. Because, at that juncture, Blink could have got anybody. They could have attracted tons of people, given them a couple $100 a week, and had them tour around. That would have been that. And most drummers would have been fine with that. But they realized that this guy is real hot. And from there, I think they started working a lot harder.
With the current lineup now formed, and with the backing of MCA, this could be their chance to really hit the big time.
We already conquered Europe years and years ago as a country. We don't need to go over there and do that again.
Yeah.